Good morning, Internet. This is Paul Moyer in plein air studio. It's off of my regular studio, but it's a nice balmy 85 degrees today in Lake Forest, California. So I'm going to work outdoors. I don't have AC in my studio. So anyway, we're continuing to test papers and test them to their limits if we can and see what they can't do. Now this is Fabriano Studio 140 pound. It says that it's cold pressed, but it's actually pretty rough, which is fine with me. I like the rougher papers. Anyway, so this is a sketch that I did of Lorry fisherman boats, and in particular this boat. It's got a really interesting lines and very nice curves and gunnels that won't end. I mean, look at this, look at that gunnel, and then it's connected to middle seats and seat on each side and rowing post. Oh yeah, the rowing post I'm not showing over here, but it would come up like this and go over like that and have a hole in it for the oars, for the oar locks. There we go. Okay, so we corrected the picture, and of course there's a lot going on. I just skipped some of the details on this boat because there's just a lot of stuff going on, and this one is some sort of fish tank. It's open. It's got wires, so I think they throw their catch in here, put a little water on it to keep them from smelling or dying. Anyway, so now we've made some improvements. The time of day, this photograph was taken at sunset, and but you know, I'm kind of getting sick of sunsets. Everyone takes them, and ordinarily I'd have a sun in the horizon. I'm not sure I want to do that, but well, it makes everything in front just kind of muted and no shadows to speak of, or at least any that you can actually show, display. So yeah, so I'm gonna put in, you know what, I'm reconsidering this. I'm reconsidering the sunset because everyone loves the sunset. So I'm gonna take my skaggiest brush, or cheapest. Here's a synthetic brush that cost a nickel, and I'm going to use it to put on this colorless resist. And the one thing about a colorless resist is that you can actually just leave it on the painting. But then the other thing about a colorless resist, yes? Okay. Okay, she who must be obeyed has just called. So, for lunch. It's 12 o'clock sharp. Good afternoon, Internet. We've had our lunch. It's about 12:15. A balmy 91 degrees in Lake Forest, Southern California. My name is Paul Moyer. As I said in the introduction, What we had left off doing for lunch was we put some resist down. Now there's a little more. I've got the picture right here, and I put some colorless resist for the sun, setting sun, but I think I'm going to put on a resist for the reflection of the sun right up to the shoreline. And I have used this fine line, and although it's a very small bottle, it also is it distributes your resist in a very fine way, fine line as it says, and it takes a bit of skill to do it right, and so this is not right, but it'll do. And you'll see this is the resist I'm going to remove. You can't even see the resist for the sun, except it seems to have, you almost can, even though it's supposed to be colorless. All around it's going to have color. I've laid out some yellows. I think I want to use a cadmium yellow, and then an ultramarine blue for the sky, and a Prussian blue, very faded. And one thing I'm going to do, and you may have looked at some of my videos on how to make your own watercolor paint, but the takeaway from that, here's my almost a throwaway brush that I used to put on this resist for the sun. But that's of course why I like the fine line. You don't waste a brush. Now, it looks like this brush is going to recover, but I really, it's not an important brush, so I could throw it away. And that's what I'd recommend, that you use a throwaway brush when you're using a resist. Something like that, or but this one, no brush required. Camera lens fell on. Okay, well, we'll continue. One thing I want to do, and I mentioned this already, is you may have seen the discussion on how to make your own paint. Well, there's some features of that it's really the standard medium, which is of course gum arabic, but also it's glycerin was another medium. Now, one thing I can do is I can do a wash, and here is my glycerin, my clear glycerin, and I'm watering it down just a little bit, and I'm going to wash so that I'll have both wet on wet and a medium that will slow drying. It's rather odd, but I have read books that one part of the book they say glycerin increases the drying time. And then another part of the same book said just the opposite. So I think I didn't get the whole story there. And so I'm doing the negative space first, and everything surrounding my subject. And it's just got just a it's a wash, and we're preparing the surface with glycerin. Now, I wouldn't be surprised. There's a surface preparation sold by Winsor Newton. They don't tell you what's in it, but they recommend that you put it on your your paper, and it will slow down the absorption into the paper. Well, interestingly enough, one of the biggest reasons why you would want to slow down the absorption is that you're using 100% cotton. Here, Fabriano Studios, this paper is 25% cotton, and it's fairly inexpensive. Now I haven't stretched it, but I've just taped on the edges, and any paper will buckle a bit, and it'll come back to its original shape. In fact, I often just lay out I think Fabriano Studios is a wonderful product for about 60 cents a sheet, and I've paid $3 a sheet for arches, and I don't know, I especially like the fact that you can lift easily, and that's pretty common for non-cotton papers. Anyway, so I think we want to put in the lighter touches first. So I'm going to add just a bit of cadmium yellow. I could have used my homemade yellows, but in this instance I'm going to the store-bought yellow, and lay it on, and it kind of reflects all the way to here. Now I've got a resist there. Right here I've got a resist, clear, colorless resist. I can't see it. Anyway, so then we want to get a little ultramarine blue going, and sometimes I use it for everything, sky, ocean, and so we've just got a dab of it, ultramarine blue, and now you can see the texture. You can see that it is a very distinctive texture. So I'm going to let that mix the other color. Think about doing my ocean, and I'm going to try something. I'm going to try a Prussian blue for ocean. Oh, come on, stop. Now I got enough Prussian blue for 10 paintings. One thing I like about tubes, of course. Now, I see that many just put their color in a well, like I'm doing here, and I have done here. But you know, it's once you put it in there, use it the next day, it's just like you're using cakes, half pans. Now we've got Prussian blue. Whoa. And I'm just doing negative spaces here. I can use the edge of my mop and do some of the finest things. Of course, you know, everyone does it. I have seen artists use the same brush for the entire painting. Tim Wilmot, sometimes you see him doing that. Now it's interesting here is we see granulation going on, and it's because the paper curled and then the yellow pooled in one place. So I'm going to rinse my brush out and dry it a bit. I use instead of paper, which you just throw away after you've used it a time or two, I use chamois, and I cut off a piece of chamois off of a big 2x3 foot piece that costs about $12, and so then each one of these little chamois are a nickel. And so don't pay $15 for a chamois that's 3 inches by 5 inches. Pay $15 and get something that's 2 feet by 3 feet, and then cut off the pieces that you need. Okay, so I've dried up my brush, and I may soak up some of this, but of course I affect the wonderful granulation that happens. I used to use a paper that was 300 pound, and in fact I think I've already, in this series on testing paper, I already have done several paintings with it, and you won't find it buckling like this. In fact, I don't tape it down, I just let it lay on the easel and do nothing with it. So now we've got some action here, and I think I want to get maybe some clouds. I know the picture has only a few clouds over here, and now it doesn't look like our wash glycerin did much to slow down the absorption, so we want to see if we can wash that out a little bit, or a little bit more. Oop. Air conditioning kicked in. It'll be cool inside of my house, but okay, so now I re-wetted the paper that had we'd had a conditioned paper with glycerin, and that should allow slower absorption and a longer period of time in which I can lift. And now you can see, though, that a Prussian blue is very opaque and staining, so you might never be able to lift up Prussian blue easily, but and I don't know if now, ultramarine blue is not staining, but I believe that, or not medium staining. no, that's not too bad. In fact, I just wanted to have a reflection of the cloud that I put in the sky there. And, well, that's okay. Huh. Be interesting to see what it looks like when we remove the resist. So we've got a shoreline there, and I always like to use sand. So I've got a paint called sand. And one of the artists on TV has his own brand of sand with Winsor Newton. So I think you can buy it from only from Winsor Newton. It's a UK thing, I think. And so we put an under a wash in. One thing I want to do is get a burnt, let's see, raw sienna, burnt umber. Let's try burnt umber, contaminated with a little sand. Oh. I'm gonna dip my brush in my drinking water. Don't do that. Well, wouldn't be a tragedy. And we're creating our negative space with a wash, kind of an under painting of a wash. And it's nice to preserve the white space as much as possible. Well, this is dusk. There's not going to be a lot of anything but shadow here, so we'll see about that. Okay, I think we've got a lot done. How about a little more mucky looking sand with a little bit of burnt umber mixed in. Oop. Not preserving my white space very well. So usually anything you lift right away will come off. And I mean, I'm probably don't need to worry about this, but I'm going to. The boat is white, so it'd be nice to just have maybe a neutral gray in the shadows. Use the same neutral gray in a number of places, but I want to do this setting first. And I think that we want to get a little darkness going. So we've got this Prussian blue. Strange mix of Prussian blue and cadmium yellow. It should produce a fairly neutral looking gray. In fact, you know, this could be almost black, and we'll keep looking at that. I like the granulation that might happen. Special effect doesn't happen. You can force it by spraying a little water on it or dripping some water here and there, and then you'll get we had some granulation going on there just because the paper waffled. Now this is something to remember. It's inexpensive paper, and you gotta hope that the waffles flatten out when it dries out. That's nothing. Nothing. You may see some of my paintings where I'm sitting at set up at the top of steps. This is in back of my studio outdoors, but the one where I bring my French easel and sit at the top of the step and do my paintings, that's my neighbor's house, and she's 102. And she's an artist, so she likes to sit on her porch and watch me paint. So, and she likes to comment. Which I appreciate. Yes, dear Helen, 102. She just got back from the hospital. She falls down a lot, and she broke her hip and part of her leg on this last fall, for this last stay at the hospital. But she's back to her home again. She doesn't want to have any assisted living. So she's got 24/7 nurses or caretakers, caregivers. Well, that's still nothing there. Hey, in the dip in the paper we got something going, but which is fine. But I think letting accidents happen really makes a painting. I'm going to have a little shadow in here. Wonder if I can get some texture going. Whoa, that's one big mystery. Okay, there's the mist. Okay, I'm gonna mist. It's an experiment. Are you still there? Oh yeah. Well, let me check. Equipment check. Okay, we're back. Everything seems to be working. I often have filmed for quite a while and find out that the camera wasn't on. Thought I filmed. One o'clock. About 92 degrees. My hot air dryer. I left my fans at my neighbor's steps where I do in plain air. Let's see if I can lift some more though. That misting did absolutely nothing. I don't see anything happening. I'm using a little dry brush here with a number 2 brush, which I bought at Aaron Brothers Art Mart, and I think I got like 50 of them for $15, an assortment of 50 of them, and I usually use them to lift for a scrubber, and they're stiff and synthetic, and sometimes it's just what you'll want. We've got Catalina Mountains in the background. I thought I'd do that last. Catalina Islands, or the Channel Islands, and actually Catalina is just one of the Channel Islands. So in a way, we are testing student paper and student brushes. I was an art student. I graduated, yeah. 52 years ago. I was a starving art student, but I didn't have other art marts, and you had to buy one brush at a time. And we would have purchased assortments as cheap as they are today, but they were not available. In fact, any place you could find that had art supplies, we would purchase them, but there were no cheap art supplies. Well, grade school quality watercolors, which you could buy at Kmart at the time. So I'm mucking about here, waiting for paint to dry on other parts of the canvas here. So I'm getting the shadows in. AC just went on, so I'll talk louder. It's funny, your microphones pick up certain kinds of background noise, like fans and street traffic and horns and taxis and whatever. So now we've got, I think I want to, I'm starting to like that Prussian blue. And we've got a lot of shade in between these boulders, and turn the whole painting into a monochrome study, but that's okay. Anything goes, really. I mean, this is not the Victorian school, although I am preserving white space. I do resist, which I don't think that they did it in the Victorian schools of watercolors. But of course, they were doing this before photography, so we have a great advantage of, they actually took, watercolor artists on expeditions to unknown lands and architectural or archaeological expeditions and surveying, and So a lot of surveyors were also watercolor artists. Not to mention many naturalists that painted in watercolor. I believe that in Britain it was a requirement if you got very far in school that you did watercolors. Now I'm speaking out of school right now because I'm not a Brit and they all know this stuff a lot better. I just read what I can, pretend I'm there in the moment. Vladimir London. Well, he is really a great watercolor artist. Mike Chaplin as well. He's getting on in years. I think he's 83, but he is brilliant. His work is brilliant. He often makes his own paints, and it's amazing. He does a lot of architectural stuff. Well, my sun and my clouds look like the same kind of light source, so my sun is not cutting it. I keep half my art supplies in my pockets so that I always have them. There, that's an eraser. I want that gummy. Oh, here's the gummy. This is for my money. This is really the best way to remove a resist. But I'll prove myself wrong. But here was the colorless resist, and you can see that if I had left it on, it wouldn't have been as white as it is here. Now we can remove other resists. This is the resist we laid down with fine line. I think I rushed it. I think that the paint is not entirely dry. So I think we're getting an experiment with painting with an eraser. Actually, this is not an eraser. I think this is specifically made for lifting resists. Could be wrong, but it doesn't seem to be much of an eraser. So, you can see my Prussian blue is not dry yet. So it's actually mingling with the newly revealed white space on the canvas. Some people like to lift this up with their fingers, but my fingers all have paint on them. So here's our sun, and reflections in the water are coming through. This Prussian blue has little chunks of pigment in it. Remember that Cotman, Winsor Newton Cotman Prussian blue. It has these blotches, and it may be that they expect you to mix the paint better on your palette and dissolve those little chunks of pigment. I think that's what they are, little chunks of pigment. Now, I think I've defined all of my white spaces, and although the negative spaces around the subject, this could use more work. I think I'll work on that, but I want to bring the subject in sooner than later. Get a decent brush. Here's a casualty too. And there's a decent brush too. You really want to use the nickel brushes to put on a resist. This is my $5 brush. I just destroyed it. This is what happens when you don't completely clean your brush off. This is worthless now. This is a wonky brush. I've now created a $5 wonky brush. And you know, you have to pay extra to get a wonky brush. So here's my newly created wonky brush. You know, and of course, very, very similar to using a fan brush, and it may work. Well, I may just throw this thing out. Yeah, anyway, so I'm looking for a good brush. Okay, here's a nice number 4 flat. I think that'll be good to put in the gunnels. And what's interesting is, if it weren't for the gunnels, this little boat wouldn't have anything going. I know that everything is white, except for the brownish, muckish yellow. So, and there's a little portion here that's got to stay white, and I should have put a resist on right here. I can use my scrubber brush. Try to see if I can lift that and restore it to its pristine origins. No, I did a number on it even. So, well, when we put another layer of sand wash on, sometime like the present, see if we can restore the apparent whiteness by having the background darker. So now here is my sand. I'll put a link into where you can buy the sand. Yeah, you can get it at Winsor Newton, but you can also buy it from the guy that invented it, and his name escapes me now. He has art classes and a t-shirt that says Winsor Newton all over it. So we've got a sandy beach. Actually, sand is very popular. Here's the whole point I wanted to make, is very carefully with my mop brush. In fact, as you well know, mop brushes are anything you want them to be. They can produce some fine, hard edges. I'm going to wash over this anyway, but I'm trying to allow myself to visualize the positive space that I'm working on. I mean, and then of course, if the negative space doesn't work out the way you wanted it, you use a more opaque over painting to accomplish your mission. Your mission is to make art that people recognize as being art. We have a planet with 3 suns. They don't really look like clouds, do they? And your washout water looks a little gray. Start over. Uh-oh. This is supposed to be my clean water in the bucket. Yeah. Bring out the fresh drinking water. I don't use my tap water because it's soft water, so it's got a little bit of salt in it, I think. So here we're back. Good. Clear, clean not tap water. It's drinking water. And you buy at the store for 85 cents a gallon. Okay, so I'm going to check, camera check, and we'll be back in a moment. Hello, Internet. We had a short break, and I couldn't help but change the picture a little bit while that was happening. So I add some things here, and I did the Santa Catalina Island, or the Channel Islands. Not sure exactly which island it is, but it's likely to be Catalina. Stuff all in pockets. Anyway, and also I did a test of my watercolor pens, and they're good for, you know, detail and touch up, but because they are absolutely entirely rigor points, and I don't know that rigor points rigor is what I want to have happen. Here we can see some of my pristine white got nuked again. So it's very difficult to, I really should have put a resist on this. I'll do another painting of this very picture and either publish both of them. Well, there, I got a little of that back. I did scrub off the sizing and all the other important things that happen on the surface of the paper. But you can see nice texture from the background. I would not use Prussian blue again. This is a mistake. So, but sometimes I paint the same drawing, but it comes out so differently that it's not the same painting. And of course, my drawings, when I draw from a photograph, you know, I get the perspective wrong. I have a photograph that looks like I'm at about a 4-foot level, the photograph, but I photograph it at the 6-foot level. And I don't know if it's because that's where my eyeballs are, or if, I don't know, I just, you know, perspective, it's everyone's point of view. So, now, here's the boat with gunnels. Everything about this boat is about the gunnels, and it seems they're all connected. Is the same color. I don't know what color that is. I guess it's like a brown sienna. Yeah, I think we were going to start painting with it before I tested the detail watercolor pen. So it's really like a, but they say it's a watercolor. Well, it'll end up like, you know, technically it's mixed media. So let's burnt sienna. Now I've got a burnt sienna here. I don't know. I'm thinking we could bring out the hand-made watercolors. Not that one, huh? Well, here I put this brush in with all my other brushes in my French easel, and suddenly my fan brush is now a wonky brush. You know, you got to take care of your equipment. And actually, I think when you put your equipment in a box, like you get with a French easel, you gotta have something to hold them down. I know they make stuff for that. I just don't happen to have it. Boy, burnt umber. This is my handmade burnt umber. See what it looks like here. Yeah, burnt umber. It's from the actual pigment. Like the burnt umber came from a company called, it's a French company, and it's called Color Rare, and they sell pigment, dirt. Basically dirt from France and Italy, and in parts of Germany. And so we can see, yeah, actually that's a pretty good match. But I remember, preserve your white space, because you don't want to violate any Victorian rules and use opaque white where you really just wanted the color of the paper to come through. Well, that's a pretty big flat brush, but you know, look at this. If you put your flat brush on its side, you can do a lot of things. So it's up to you how you want to use your materials. And I am trying valiantly to make curved lines here, and I think I did okay there. But most important thing is also to show the shadows. Now here I've got this attachment to the gunnel, and I think my paint is, that's how that bucket gets dirty. Yeah, better that bucket than the pristine clear water over here. Anyway, I think I need to get, I think I need to do more transparent watercolor here. And again, now it's become a wash. Oop. I'm nuking some of my white space. Careful. I'm probably could use a rigger for this, but I think it's doing okay. We are all told that we should use as large a brush as we can so that we don't scrub the paint on in a way that maybe it doesn't want to be pushed in place. After all, watercolor shouldn't be terribly opaque, so I am trying to scrub out some of what I got far too opaque. And of course, you know, when watercolor is translucent, it's so much more interesting because you get shades of that color, not just blobs. Blobs that need further definition with another layer of opaque paint. Yeah, like gouache. And really, I want to preserve the objectives of watercolor. And that's to lay down. Now this is my homemade paint, and it's really not too bad. I probably should go to a rigger. Or a very small round brush. Here's a you know, kind of a synthetic round number 2, and you could call it a rigger. It's just that it's a white bristle synthetic nylon brush, and costing about a nickel. But you know what? If you're a student, this is going to do you good. It'll be just fine. Student grade means lesser quality, far lower cost, but you know, until we all become professionals, I don't know at what point that is. I have a degree in art, and I have been an architectural renderer, and I transitioned from doing mixed media to the computer. So I actually started rendering with a computer using AutoCAD 14, and I worked on the Seahawks Stadium. They called it the Washington State football and soccer stadium. I don't know how much soccer goes on there, but I do know. And when I was working on it, my name is Paul Moyer, and the quarterback for the Seahawks was named Paul Moyer. And whenever I introduced myself, I said, my name's Paul Moyer. Oh, sure. Like I was taking over someone else's name. I was born with this name, so I couldn't figure that. You know, it was kind of funny. Kind of funny. Now here, this vertical part of the gunnel, right there, I've got 2 lines, and everything there is absolutely white. But this is also white. It's just whiter. So somehow we make that look whiter by contrasting. I'm still using my nickel brush instead of a bona fide. There. It works. Of course, I've used all kinds of media. To make the images that I needed. And there's, you know, Victorian watercolor, there's a lot of rules. How much you observe those rules is up to you. And, you know, rules are meant to be broken. So, now I think I am going to ever so slightly, it's an odd thing but I actually like this bristle brush for a rigger. I don't ask him why, and actually I use like my homemade umber. Yeah, what are they? These ones. Where did I put it? Yeah, and so it is. It's a burnt umber, and from the Color Rare company, and I like it as much as if I'd, you know, paid 20 times more and gotten it out of a tube. In fact, I have a tube of it here too, but I suppose just to make a point, I'm using it, but not really. I like it. Now, this is supposed to be nearly white. So all I have to do is add more water. In fact, works just fine. Put a wash, and in fact that's the same color I might use as the shining reflection of the light. So add a little more paint to my wash, my water, and continue on with everything that seems to be that color of white. So it's a light wash that I'm putting on here. Wow, it's only 100 out. Very odd. Now here, I think it's extremely white. And so one thing I can do is wash it out in the middle here and wash out the pigment and get my white or reflected light from the sun. I like how that's happening there, and it's an odd thing that I would find that this little brush may be my favorite rigger. I mean, riggers don't have to be really dainty little long stranded red sable. If